So if you're someone that has had neck pain, maybe you're a new mom and you want to understand why this happens, and you're going to want to hear this story. We have Grace today, and she's going to kind of share a little bit about what happened with her and why it all started.
Yeah. Okay. So I think it was just from carrying my daughter 24/7. I didn't actually do a certain movement or thing that hurt my neck. I think it was just an overtime. I have a Velcro baby. She always wants to be carried and always have her on one side. And then I was baking in the kitchen one day and I just turned my head like normal. And I think that was just like the final straw of just the constant carrying on one side and being uneven. And yeah, turned my head. I was like, how did I injure myself turning my head? But I don't think it was from just turning my head. I think it was
No, it's
definitely
really
from
common.
carrying, yeah, definitely from carrying my daughter a lot and just always on one side compensating, so
Yeah, and that's
that's
really
how I think it
common.
happened.
Yeah, people literally don't realize like it's usually the repetitive things that we do. And then all of a sudden it's like you wake up and you have pain. Like, what did I do? I just like woke up, or you just did one
Yeah.
thing. You're like, this is really weird. Like I normally can turn my head and no problems, but then one
Yeah.
thing and you're like, what the heck? But it
Yeah.
is. It's accumulation of things that happen over time that our bodies aren't used to. And that's really what causes a lot of things. So when you turned? I mean, like, tell me, like, what happened? What were your feelings? Like, what were some of your fears?
It was one of those things where it almost felt like I turned my head and my neck was going to pop like normal, just
Yeah,
like the classic crack crack.
yeah.
Um, but it didn't. And then it just stayed there. And it almost felt like I was just stuck. And then I was like, oh no, what did I do? So it was like the initial thought was like, oh, it's fine. Let me just go try and pop my neck again.
Yeah.
And then when it wouldn't pop and it just couldn't move my neck a certain way, I was like, then it was like, holy crap, what did I do? Like, I'm stuck. So then I had my fiance just trying to pop my back and do all these different things, thinking that it just needed to crack and then it would be fine. And that was not the case. I went to bed that night, couldn't sleep at all because I was in so much pain, and then woke up the next morning and it was even worse. And I was like, all right, so something is wrong. So I immediately was like, Stephanie, help.
Yeah, and I mean, you're lucky because I know your mom, we've treated her for a while, and
Yeah.
um I mean, she's tried everything, like literally everything. So you got the benefit of like, oh, I know the person. I'm gonna
Yep.
come in and like I'm
Yeah.
gonna get this solved.
Totally. Yeah. She was so kind to even give me her appointment for the
Yes.
first because I was so desperate. I can't wait. I
Change of
need
plans.
now. Yeah.
Yes. Oh,
I
yeah.
need
Because
now.
when I
So
first saw it, I was like, oh my God. I mean, you were like locked up,
I
like
was, yeah, very
no
up.
movement whatsoever. And
Yeah.
you were literally like stuck where your head was almost stuck forward. And,
Uh-huh.
we just had to like start working on doing baby movements. And I remember by
Yeah.
the end of the hour, like we got the movement back. I'm like, this is not going to stick. You're going to have to come
Yeah.
back pretty quickly because
Oh, yeah.
you're going to be like, oh, this is great. And you're like, oh, wait, why did this not stick? And I was like, it's going to take a couple of visits before
Yeah.
you notice it like kind of last.
Yeah. Which it did for
Yeah.
sure. But yeah, it was definitely one of those things where I was like, how am I going to get things done? How am I going to pick up my child that constantly wants to be carried?
Yeah. How am I going to function throughout the day?
Yeah,
And one of the
exactly.
things like you didn't have to do, but like most of our clients do, is that they're going in and they're having all this pain and they're having to wait for a doctor's appointment and then get in to see them. And then they'd be like, well, here's some drugs. And so you've been down this long process. And when you have pain
Yeah.
that close to your head, it is exhausting.
Hmm.
Exhausting. Like people don't
Yeah.
realize how exhausting it is. And they don't even like we have clients that like, I don't think my husband even understands like how much pain I'm in because you just can't see it. Like it's not like,
Yeah.
oh wow, you have a wound on your arm. Wow, your arm is falling off your body. Like it must hurt.
Yeah.
But
No,
it's
exactly.
exhausting. And I
It
know
is
your mom
exhausting.
like knows that to a T because
Oh
that's
yeah.
some of the
She
things that. that I don't know how she's functioned,
I don't
honestly.
know how she functioned either.
Because she's so much better now. And it's like, I don't even
Uh,
know how she functioned before seeing us. I don't
Me
know.
either. Yeah, it's crazy. But
So what give us an idea of like when we started doing the evaluation, I was like, oh, I know exactly what you were doing. You were looking down at your baby, whether from feeding or like on the floor or whatever. What did you notice like after I told you that and said we've got to avoid this for the short term? Like, what did you notice when we went through some of those things on what you were doing throughout the day?
like some of the exercises that you gave me to,
No, just like why it happens. Because I remember like in our conversation, like,
oh,
oh
like
my
you
God,
walked
I
me
look
through
down
like,
all the time.
yeah, yeah. So I think I just became very aware of the movements that I do with my body, I
Yeah,
guess, and why it happened. Because
yeah,
yeah, I did say that to you. I was like, I just noticed that I look down all the time, and I probably would have never noticed that if I was able to look down. But because my neck locked up, I wasn't able to look down,
yeah,
and I look down like 75% of the time. Like I'm
yeah,
like all like my daughter's on the floor. I'm always looking down.
yeah.
And if she's not on the floor, she's up here, which was even worse for
Oh yeah,
me.
because then you're like
Uh,
looking like this.
yes, because then you're looking like that and not just like out and down. Um, yeah, I think I just noticed I wasn't very aware. And even like I think we talked about it too, driving. Like
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
like this, I'm like, oh my gosh, like I didn't realize that I like hold on to the steering wheel and put my head forward, which is like exactly where it hurt.
yeah.
Or like wherever I threw my neck out. I just like you just become so much more aware of how
What you're
you
doing throughout the
stand.
day. Yeah,
Yeah, like what your posture's like, how you stand, where you're turning your head and how you're turning your head, how where you're looking, how much you're on your phone because you're like
yeah,
I was like, "Oh my gosh, just looking at my phone is looking down." Like it just made me become very aware
yeah.
of what I do day to day that like on a normal day when I'm not having neck pain, I
You
don't
would have never
realize
known. Yeah,
and I would never know. But then when I do have this neck pain, I'm like, oh my gosh, like
yeah,
this is terrible. I need to start looking up more. Or like I need to be on my phone a little bit less. Or when I'm carrying Margot on one hip, maybe I don't just like turn my head and look down so fast because I'm gonna throw my neck out again. Like,
yeah.
you know what I mean?
Well, and those are the things too. Like it's a big piece that a lot of other healthcare providers forget on
Mhm.
going into like why did this happen? Like what did you do throughout the day that created it? Because if that wasn't even if you didn't even have that like we didn't bring that awareness around it, you probably would have sort of figured it out, but you would have gone right back to the same activities and like why does my neck keep on locking up? Like I don't understand. Like and so that's a big part of understanding like why things happen.
Yeah.
We do it to
No,
ourselves. We just don't know that we do it to
yeah,
ourselves.
you just don't realize it until it happens.
Yeah. So what were some of your fears if this didn't get solved? Like, I know it's like a short period of time, so you probably didn't, but sometimes like it's very like our brain wants to go to like worst case scenario. Um,
Yeah. Um, I'm not really sure I had like any fears about long term.
yeah,
I just like, I mean, my background and
yeah,
history of just
yeah,
I was a D1 athlete. I had
yeah,
so many injuries all the time,
yeah,
and I still kind of deal with a little bit of them here and there
yeah,
to this day. So it wasn't like I never felt like, oh my gosh, my neck is going to be like this forever.
yeah,
I maybe thought oh, this is just going to be my new life. Like, hopefully it gets better, and I'm thinking it will
yeah,
get better, but maybe it won't go back to 100% the same. But like, I deal with chronic, you
yeah,
know, foot pain, elbow pain from all of my different surgeries. Being an athlete, that like, oh, let's just add it on to the list.
yeah,
Like, you know what I mean? Which is like
yeah,
obviously not ideal,
yeah,
but I don't think I ever felt. I also think that I mean, after seeing you before, like even
yeah,
with my, you gave me those exercises for my foot a really long time ago after I
yeah.
had that surgery and things like that. Like I was like, if I see Stephanie enough, like
She's gonna figure it out. Yeah,
she's gonna figure it out. I'm not gonna be stuck like this forever. But yeah, I agree. There is still there's a little bit of fear of like, oh my gosh. And I think even for me, it was, oh my gosh, the next week, not even like the
yes,
next month, but like how am I gonna get up in
Function the
the
next
morning
week.
at 7:30, get
Yeah.
my daughter out of bed, like nurse her, like do all of these different things because she doesn't know that I'm in pain and
Oh
she
yeah.
doesn't know that I'm in pain because
No.
she's 9 months old and she just wants to eat and play and wants my, you know what I mean? So I think like the fear was less like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna be like this forever and more like, how am
Yeah.
I gonna get through this week?
Yeah.
And how, you know what I mean? How, or even like the next 2 weeks while I'm seeing you
Yes.
working on it, but it's
Yeah.
still not 100% better. Like that was kind of the fear.
Yeah.
But I never had any fear in
Yeah.
my mind of like, this is never gonna go away.
Yeah, and I can totally relate to that because I was an athlete, Division 1 athlete as well. And so I always like, well, I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to take care of it and I always could. And then as
Yeah,
I've gotten older, I'm like, oh my God, is this the one? Is this the one time I'm not going to be able to figure it out? Like that's going to really suck because if I can't
yeah.
like move or exercise, like my husband will leave me because I can't function without doing that kind of stuff. But I always get in the back of my mind when something happens, I'm like, is this going to be the one? Is this it? Is this the one where I'm not going to be able to
Yeah.
figure it out and like
Hmm.
avoid the surgery and all those things?
Yeah.
I get to that point sometimes. I'm like, but then I
Yeah.
always figure it out.
No, that's
But
totally
in the back of my
fair.
head, it's always like,
Yeah.
is this the one? Is this the one
It's
that's going to
the
get
one.
me?
Yeah. No, that's totally fair. Yeah, I completely understand. And I'm sure at some point there will be
You
that
will
one.
understand that when you start getting older too.
Yeah, yeah, that too. Just lucky that right now my
Because
body
all
can
the wear
bounce
and
back.
tear that happens to your body, you will eventually kind of catches up to where it's like,
Yeah.
oh, it's a little bit more like what, and you'll figure it out. Like I figured it out and how to do it. And this is why I also buy all this equipment. Like I'm getting a new focus shockwave, which actually can help with bone like healing, arthritis
Oh,
healing,
cool.
without having to have surgeries. Like it's the bomb. Can't wait to get it. But
Yeah,
we just
I'm gonna
purchased
try
that and
that.
we have stuff for like shockwave that can like help take like degenerative tissue or tissue that's just not healing as
Cool.
well, which happens when you kind of get older or you have injuries and it like makes it new again. So I'm buying
Yeah,
all sorts of fun stuff and it's
I'm
mostly
gonna
for me
try that.
because I want to keep on going.
Yep, totally fair. Yeah,
But then my patients get the benefit of me having all the fun little tools that we have. So
yeah, no, that's awesome.
what would you say like to someone who was on the fence about coming into our office?
I mean, I would tell them that like it's a no-brainer. Like I didn't even think twice. Um, Whenever I mean, when this happened, I immediately was like, Mom, I can't get out of bed. I need you to come to help me take care of my daughter. And then she was like, Do you want my appointment with Stephanie? I was like, absolutely, yes. Like there was no question. So I feel like if someone was on the fence, I would just highly, highly, highly recommend it. For me, it was a no-brainer because I knew that if I saw you, I would
You're
at
ready
least
to help.
I would at least get some relief from that first appointment and then continue seeing you and
Yeah.
it eventually go away.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I would tell them that they shouldn't question it. They should
Yeah.
absolutely go see you because you'll fix them and make
Yeah.
them all better.
How many, it was before you got feeling like really good. How many visits do you think it was?
Was it
I'm
four?
thinking it's like three or
Three or
four.
four?
Yeah. Where you were well on your way. Like, wow,
Yeah,
I
it
feel so
wasn't,
much better.
it honestly wasn't like, I think even by the second visit, I was like, oh my gosh, like, even because I had my first visit, what, like a day after it happened, or 2 days after it
Yeah.
happened, something like that. It just ended up working out really well that my mom had an appointment with you. And then the next week, that second appointment, like I was still locked up, but
Yeah.
I feel like it was exponentially
Way
better.
better. Yeah.
And then by appointment three and appointment
Yeah.
four, it was really like, okay, I can now like move my head like
Yeah.
normally. And I'm not like, there was maybe one tiny movement if like I put my head too far backwards, but I was
Yeah.
like not doing that. I also think that the exercises you gave me
Yeah.
uh, to do
Helps
throughout the
maintain
week when I
everything.
wasn't seeing you helped. Yeah. I
Yeah.
think it helped like in between the appointment days of like, okay, I see you this day, and then the rest of the days I'm going to work on these exercises, and it kind of like kept me
Feeling
like go.
good. Yeah. It does a good job of maintaining what we've done to like
Yeah,
to
exactly.
extend it out from our treatment. So yeah, it usually I mean, ever so often we have people coming in couple times a week, but a lot of times you don't really have to. Now, your injury was like very recent, so it makes it easier for things to resolve. When people have like a chronic pain, it can take a little longer. But
Mhm.
usually, even the first visit, if we haven't figured it out, it takes us 2, 3 visits sometimes to like, okay, we've just ruled out this, we've ruled out this. Okay, this is what it is.
Yeah.
But when people come in recently, we can use like it just happens. It's so much easier to solve those problems than when
Yeah.
people, it's like, I've had this for 10 years. I'm like, oh, great.
Yeah.
Have a lot of layers to pull out and get back
Yeah.
going. But when people
For
come in
sure.
pretty quickly, it can be fast, even when you literally can't move your neck.
Exactly. And I even feel like too, with me specifically, I came in and I was like, I almost was didn't really know the exact spot. I was just like my neck and my upper back. Like I don't know where it is. It just all hurts. And
Yes.
you like put me in a position, you're like, oh, yep, found it. This is where it is. And I was just like, oh my gosh. Like, yeah, I guess that's where it is. But like I was in so much pain that it felt like it was just
It was
spreading
everywhere. Yeah.
everywhere. So I couldn't really put a pinpoint.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess that makes sense that because it was newer, it's a little bit easier
Yeah.
to find it, pinpoint, and then be like, okay, this happened like
Yeah.
2 days ago, so we can kind of
Yeah.
get you out of there
And
a little
it was very
bit.
mechanical. And what I mean, like it's like very like your joints just couldn't move. We can get those moving pretty quickly when you start
Yeah,
having issues with like there's some weakness here and there's like a tendonitis, like those can take a little bit longer. But people, I mean, usually get results fairly quickly of just understanding what it is and going, oh wow, we know that we can help. Like just knowing that helps
yeah,
people like say, okay, cool. I'm at a place, I know I'm gonna get help and that makes it better for them as well. So, but thank you so much for your story because I know this is what
yeah,
people really connect with and hearing it from other
for
people's
sure.
voices besides mine.
Yeah. I'm
It's
happy.
really true what I say. It's really true, I promise.
It is true. It is very true. Yeah, I'm happy I could share my story.
Yeah, thanks.
Yep, of course.